In the cold depths of space, an uneasy stillness settled over Earth's solar system. The blue marble of humanity's homeworld hung suspended against the endless black, its vibrant colors a stark contrast to the lifeless void surrounding it. Yet even the planet's lively appearance belied the tension that gripped its inhabitants, for on the fringes of the solar system, an immense alien armada had just emerged from the shimmering portal of a wormhole. The ships were unlike anything humans had ever encountered. Sleek and angular, their hulls seemed to absorb light itself, as if they were carved from the very fabric of spacetime. Glowing lines of power pulsed along their surfaces, hinting at the unfathomable energies they harnessed. These were the vessels of a civilization that had long since mastered the secrets of the cosmos, their technology so advanced it appeared almost magical to human eyes. On the bridge of the largest alien ship, a being stood tall and proud, its form shrouded in a shimmering cloak of energy. This was the supreme commander of the Galactic Imperium, a figure whose very presence demanded obedience and respect. With a wave of its slender appendage, the commander signaled for a transmission to be sent to the pitiful planet before them. "Attention, inhabitants of Earth," the commander's voice boomed across every frequency, translated into thousands of human languages by the ship's sophisticated communication systems. "Your species stands on the precipice of annihilation. Your primitive technologies and petty squabbles have not gone unnoticed by the Galactic Imperium. We have deemed you unworthy of your place in the cosmos, and now, we have come to claim what is rightfully ours." As the transmission ended, a wave of panic swept across Earth. In hastily assembled war rooms and command centers, human leaders stared at the screens in disbelief, the alien ships looming ominously in the displays. They had always known this day might come, but they had hoped it would be in some distant future, when humanity had advanced enough to stand on equal footing with the other races of the galaxy. Yet for all their trepidation, there was a glimmer of defiance in the eyes of Earth's defenders. They had not come this far, had not clawed their way up from the primordial soup to the stars, only to bend the knee to some alien overlord. If the Imperium wanted their world, they would have to take it by force. In the heart of Earth's global defense network, a grim-faced general turned to her assembled staff. "Initiate quantum shield protocol," she ordered, her voice steady, despite the gravity of the situation. "Bring all singularity cannon arrays online. And send a message to the Forge, we're going to need every nanoswarm and graviton tank we have." As her orders were carried out, the general couldn't help but feel a sense of trepidation. Earth's quantum technology had advanced in leaps and bounds in recent years, giving them a fighting chance against most potential invaders. But the reports coming in about the alien armada were troubling. Their ships seemed to possess an otherworldly grace, slipping through the fabric of reality like ghosts. Even Earth's most sophisticated sensors struggled to get a lock on them. It was almost as if the laws of physics themselves bent to the Imperium's will. The general shook her head, banishing the thought. They would face this threat as they had faced all others, with courage, determination, and the unbreakable spirit of humanity. They would fight to the last breath, to the last ship, to the last soldier. And if they were to fall, they would make sure the Imperium paid dearly for its victory. For even in the face of annihilation, the people of Earth refused to surrender. They would stand, they would fight, and they would show the galaxy the true meaning of human resilience. As the first shots of the battle lit up the void, a single thought echoed in the minds of every man, woman, and child on the beleaguered planet. Come what may, humanity would not go quietly into the night. As the alien armada hung in the skies above Earth, the planet's inhabitants scrambled to mount a defense. In command centers and war rooms across the globe, generals and scientists pored over the scant data they had managed to gather on the invaders' capabilities. The outlook was grim. The Imperium's ships seemed to dance through space with an effortless grace, their exotic weaponry slicing through Earth's quantum shields like a hot knife through butter. But even as despair threatened to overtake them, Earth's defenders refused to give in. For years, they had known this day might come, the day when humanity would have to fight for its very existence against a technologically superior foe. And so, in secret facilities hidden deep beneath the planet's surface, Earth's brightest minds had been hard at work, developing technologies and strategies that might just give them a fighting chance. In a cavernous underground hangar, Dr. Lena Sorensen strode past rows of sleek, angular craft, their matte black hulls seeming to absorb the light from the overhead lamps. These were the Shadow Hunters, aerospace fighters equipped with a revolutionary propulsion system that allowed them to slip through the fabric of spacetime, much like the alien ships themselves. "Engage cloaking fields," Dr. Sorensen ordered as she climbed into the cockpit of the lead craft. "We'll approach the enemy fleet from below, using the gravity well of the moon to mask our presence." As the Shadow Hunters lifted off, disappearing into shimmering veils of bent light, other human forces were preparing their own surprises for the alien invaders. In the heart of Earth's most heavily defended military bases, soldiers armed themselves not with the sleek quantum rifles of the regular army, but with weapons that seemed almost anachronistic by comparison. Massive electromagnetically powered railguns, their barrels wreathed in crackling energy fields. Exoskeletons powered by advanced hydraulics and artificial musculature, granting their wearers superhuman strength and speed. And towering mechanized walkers, their lumbering forms bristling with an array of kinetic and directed energy weapons. To an outside observer, it might have seemed like a strange mismatch, the sleek, futuristic alien ships pitted against the brute force weapons of humanity. But Earth strategists knew that in this battle, raw power and resilience would be just as important as advanced technology. For while the Imperium's ships might seem invincible, they were also highly specialized, their systems finely tuned for the rigors of interstellar travel and space combat. But in the close confines of a terrestrial battlefield, where the lines between friend and foe could shift in an instant, the aliens' technological edge would be blunted. And that was where humanity's secret weapons would come into play. In the years leading up to the invasion, Earth scientists had been studying the Imperium's technology from afar, seeking to understand its strengths and weaknesses. And what they had discovered was a critical flaw in the aliens' quantum-based systems, a vulnerability to concentrated electromagnetic fields. Now, as the alien ground forces began to descend on Earth's cities, they found themselves facing a deadly gauntlet of EMP mines and pulse generators, each one capable of shorting out their advanced weapons and sensors. The invaders, so used to relying on their technological superiority, were suddenly thrust into a brutal, close-quarters battle where the outcome would be decided by grit, determination, and raw physical strength. And in that kind of fight, humanity had the home field advantage. As reports of the ground battles filtered back to Earth's command centers, a sense of cautious optimism began to take hold. Against all odds, humanity was holding its own against the most powerful civilization in the known universe. But even as they celebrated each small victory, Earth's leaders knew that the real test was still to come. For high above the planet, the bulk of the alien armada was still waiting, its weapons primed and ready for the final assault. If humanity was to have any hope of survival, they would need to find a way to neutralize the Imperium's ships, and fast. In the underground hangar, Dr. Sorensen ran her fingers over the sleek contours of her Shadow Hunter, a grim smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. She knew what she had to do, what all of humanity would have to do, if they were to have any chance of victory. They would have to take the fight to the enemy, using every ounce of ingenuity and determination they possessed. They would have to strike hard and fast, before the aliens could bring their full might to bear. And most of all, they would have to remember the one thing that had always set humanity apart, even in its darkest moments. Its unbreakable will to survive, no matter the odds. As the Shadow Hunters rocketed into the sky, their cloaking fields shimmering in the starlight, Dr. Sorensen closed her eyes and whispered a silent prayer. Not for herself, but for all of humanity, poised on the brink of its greatest battle. May the courage of our ancestors be with us, she thought, as the vastness of space opened up before her. And may our enemies tremble at the sight of what we have become. As the Shadow Hunters streaked through the void, their cloaking fields rendering them all but invisible against the starry backdrop of space, Dr. Lena Sorensen couldn't help but feel a sense of grim determination. She knew that the fate of humanity rested on the shoulders of her and her fellow pilots, that if they failed in their mission, Earth would be left defenseless against the might of the alien armada. But Sorensen also knew that failure was not an option. Not when so much was at stake. Not when the hopes and dreams of billions hung in the balance. As the sleek fighters approached the alien fleet, Sorensen's eyes narrowed, her gaze focused on the looming shapes of the Imperium's ships. Even from a distance, she could feel the thrumming power of their exotic engines, the pulsing glow of their quantum shields, casting an eerie light across the void. For a moment, doubt crept into her mind. How could they hope to stand against such overwhelming force? How could their primitive, brute force weapons even begin to scratch the surface of the aliens' advanced technology? But then, as if in answer to her unspoken fears, a voice crackled over the comm link, the steady, reassuring tone of mission control back on Earth. Shadow Hunters, this is Control. We've analyzed the data from your sensor scans, and we've identified a potential weakness in the enemy's defenses. Their quantum shields are highly effective against conventional weapons, but they seem to have a vulnerability to concentrated bursts of electromagnetic energy. Sorensen's eyes widened, a sudden surge of hope rising in her chest. If the alien shields could be penetrated by EMP bursts, then perhaps humanity stood a chance after all. Roger that, Control, she replied, her voice steady and calm, despite the adrenaline pumping through her veins. We'll target their shield generators with our EMP torpedoes. If we can knock them out, it should give our ground forces a fighting chance. As one, the Shadow Hunters peeled off, each fighter selecting a different target among the alien fleet. Sorensen's ship darted towards the nearest Imperium vessel, its sleek hull glinting in the starlight. At the last moment, just as the alien ship's sensors finally detected the approaching fighter, Sorensen fired her EMP torpedoes. The projectiles streaked through space, their casings wreathed in crackling fields of electromagnetic force. The effect was immediate and devastating. As the torpedoes impacted the alien ship's shields, the quantum barrier flickered and died, the vessel's hull suddenly exposed to the cold vacuum of space. Seizing the opportunity, Sorensen unleashed a barrage of kinetic rounds from her railguns, the hypervelocity projectiles tearing through the alien ship's armor like tissue paper. Explosions blossomed across the vessel's surface as its internal systems ruptured and failed, the once mighty warship reduced to a drifting hulk in a matter of seconds. All around her, Sorensen's fellow pilots were having similar success. One by one, the alien ships fell, their shields collapsing under the onslaught of EMP torpedoes and their hulls shredded by the brutal impact of human weapons. But even as the tide began to turn in orbit, the ground battle on Earth was reaching a critical juncture. In the heart of the planet's most heavily defended cities, human forces clashed with the invading alien troops in a brutal, close-quarters fight for survival. The aliens were formidable opponents, their advanced exoskeletons granting them superhuman strength and speed. But the humans had a few tricks up their sleeves as well. In the narrow streets and alleyways of the embattled cities, squads of human soldiers wielded powerful Gauss rifles, the magnetic weapons launching hypersonic projectiles with devastating force. Towering mechanized walkers, their hulls bristling with pulse lasers and plasma cannons, lumbered through the rubble-strewn streets, shrugging off the aliens' weapons' fire like so much rain. And then there were the EMP mines and pulse generators, strategically placed throughout the urban battlefields. As the alien troops advanced, their shields and sensors suddenly shorting out in showers of sparks, they found themselves vulnerable to the humans' unrelenting assault. It was a brutal, bloody fight, with both sides taking heavy casualties. But slowly, inexorably, the human forces began to push the invaders back, their grim determination and raw physical strength proving more than a match for the aliens' technological edge. In the command center deep beneath the surface of Earth, the generals and strategists watched the tide of battle turn with a growing sense of wonder and hope. Against all odds, humanity was holding its own, and more than holding its own, it was starting to win. But even as they celebrated each hard-fought victory, the leaders of Earth knew that the war was far from over. The bulk of the alien armada was still out there, waiting for the right moment to strike. And deep within the bowels of the invaders' ships, a new threat was stirring, a force that could spell the doom of humanity, even in its moment of triumph. For the Imperium had not come to Earth unprepared. They had brought with them a weapon unlike any the galaxy had ever seen, a device that could warp the very fabric of space and time itself. And as the ground battles raged and the shadow hunters dueled with the alien fleet in the skies above, the countdown to doomsday had already begun. Deep within the bowels of the alien flagship, a shadowy figure moved with purposeful stealth through the dimly lit corridors. Zax Kra, the Imperium's most skilled infiltrator, had a mission of the utmost importance, one that could turn the tide of the war in a single stroke. As he made his way towards the ship's central command deck, Zax Kra's thoughts drifted to the briefing he had received from the Imperium's high command. They had spoken of a new weapon, a device of unimaginable power that could bring the humans to their knees once and for all. But to deploy this weapon, they needed access to Earth's global defense network, and that meant infiltrating the most heavily guarded facility on the planet. Zax Kra's orders were clear. He was to lead a team of the Imperium's most skilled saboteurs to Earth's surface, breach the facility's defenses, and upload a virus that would grant the aliens control over humanity's entire military infrastructure. It was a daunting task, but one that Zax Kra relished. After all, he had never failed a mission before. As he slipped into the waiting stealth shuttle, his team of hand-picked operatives already prepped and ready, Zax Kra allowed himself a small smile. Soon, he thought, the humans would learn the true futility of their resistance. Meanwhile, on the surface of Earth, the ground war raged on with unrelenting ferocity. In the bombed-out ruins of what had once been a thriving metropolis, human soldiers and mechanized walkers clashed with the alien invaders in a brutal, no-holds-barred battle for survival. Sergeant Jake Pitbull Maddox, leader of the elite Sigma squad, ducked behind the shattered remains of a concrete wall as a barrage of plasma fire seared the air above his head. His heart pounded in his chest, adrenaline surging through his veins as he checked the charge on his Gauss rifle. Sigma Squad, this is command, a voice crackled over the comm link. We have a Priority 1 mission for you. We've detected an alien infiltration team headed towards the Olympus Defense Facility. If they breach the compound and access the mainframe, they could gain control over our entire military network. Maddox's eyes narrowed, his grip tightening on his weapon. The Olympus facility was the heart of Earth's defense grid, the nerve center that coordinated all of the planet's military assets. If the aliens gained control of it, the war would be as good as lost. Understood, Command, he replied, his voice steady, despite the chaos raging around him. We'll make sure those bastards never even get close. As Maddox rallied his squad and set off towards the Olympus facility, he couldn't shake the feeling that this mission would be different from any they had faced before. The aliens were desperate now, their forces in disarray after the string of human victories. They would stop at nothing to regain the upper hand, and that made them more dangerous than ever. At the edge of the Olympus facility's perimeter, Zax Kra and his team materialized out of thin air, their active camouflage suits blending seamlessly with the surrounding terrain. With practiced efficiency, they breached the compound's outer defenses, their quantum-entangled blades slicing through the reinforced steel like butter. But as they made their way deeper into the facility, picking off the human guards with ruthless precision, they failed to notice the silent alarm that had been tripped by their intrusion. In the facility's central command room, the base commander watched the infiltrators' progress with a grim smile. They've taken the bait, she said, turning to the figure standing beside her. Your squad is in position? Maddox nodded, his face set in a mask of determination. We're ready, he said simply. As Zax Kra and his team burst into the command room, their weapons raised and ready to strike, they found themselves face to face not with cowering human technicians, but with the battle-hardened veterans of Sigma Squad. For a moment, the two sides stared each other down, the tension in the room so thick it could be cut with a knife. Then, with a roar of fury, Maddox and his squad opened fire, their Gauss rifles spitting hypersonic death at the alien intruders. Zax Kra reacted with lightning speed, his quantum blade flashing as he deflected the incoming fire. But even as he fought with all the skill and ferocity of a born warrior, he could feel the tide turning against him. The humans had planned this ambush carefully, luring the infiltrators into a trap within the very heart of their own facility. And now, as the Sigma Squad closed in, their weapons blazing and their eyes alight with the fire of righteous fury, Zax Kra knew that his mission had failed. In the end, it was Maddox who struck the final blow, his Gauss rifle finding its mark with unerring accuracy. As Zach's Crow fell to the ground, his lifeblood pooling around him, he looked up at the human soldier with a mixture of hatred and grudging respect. "You may have won this battle," he rasped, his voice barely more than a whisper. "But the war is far from over. The Imperium will never stop, never rest, until your species is nothing more than a memory." Maddox looked down at the dying alien, his face a mask of grim determination. "We'll see about that," he said, his voice hard as steel. As the last of the infiltrators fell and the Olympus facility was secured, a cheer went up from the human defenders. They had won a great victory today, thwarting the aliens' most insidious plan and striking a blow for the survival of their species. But even as they celebrated, they knew that the war was far from over. The Imperium's new weapon, whatever it was, still loomed on the horizon, a threat that could spell the doom of humanity, even in its moment of triumph. And so, as the sun set over the war-torn landscape of Earth, the human defenders steeled themselves for the battles to come. They had proven today that they were a force to be reckoned with, that their courage, their ingenuity, and their sheer, bloody-minded determination could overcome even the most overwhelming odds. But the true test was yet to come. And as they looked to the stars, to the vast expanse of space where the alien armada still lurked, they knew that the fate of their world, and of all the worlds beyond, would be decided in the days ahead. In the cold void of space, the battered but unbroken forces of humanity prepared for their final stand against the Imperium's invasion fleet. The loss of their infiltration team and the failure of their sabotage mission had dealt the aliens a serious blow, but everyone knew the fight was far from over. On the bridge of the Unity, Earth's flagship carrier, Admiral Nadia Ivanova studied the tactical displays with a grim intensity. The alien armada still vastly outgunned and outnumbered her cobbled-together fleet, a ragtag assembly of every space-worthy vessel humanity had left. "Status report on the enemy fleet?" Admiral Ivanova asked, her voice tightly controlled. "They're massing near the moon, Admiral," replied her sensor officer. "It looks like they're preparing for a final, all-out assault on Earth." Ivanova nodded, her jaw set in a hard line. She had expected as much. The aliens were done with subtlety and sabotage. Now, it would come down to a brutal contest of raw firepower and resolve, one that, by all conventional measures, humanity had little chance of winning. But the Admiral and her crew had a few unconventional tricks up their sleeve. "Initiate Prometheus Protocol," Ivanova ordered. "It's time to show these invaders what human ingenuity can do." Across the fleet, a flurry of activity erupted as the human ships prepared to enact their desperate, audacious plan. For months, Earth's brightest scientists and engineers had been working around the clock to retrofit their vessels with a revolutionary new technology, one that, if it worked, could give them the edge they so desperately needed. The technology was codenamed Prometheus, after the Titan of Greek myth who stole fire from the gods and gave it to humanity. It was a fitting name, for what the human inventors had created was nothing short of miraculous, a way to harness the fundamental forces of the universe itself. At its core, Prometheus was a quantum field manipulator, a device that could tap into the seething ocean of energy that underlies all of reality. With it, human ships could warp gravity, manipulate inertia, even fold spacetime itself. In theory, it could allow them to perform maneuvers that defied the laws of conventional physics, maneuvers that the alien ships, for all their advanced technology, simply could not match. But Prometheus was also highly experimental and dangerously unstable. The science behind it pushed the boundaries of human understanding to the breaking point. Even now, as the fleet powered up their Prometheus devices and prepared to engage the enemy, no one knew for certain if the technology would work as intended or if it would tear their ships apart from the inside out. On the Unity's bridge, Admiral Ivanova watched the tactical displays with bated breath as the alien fleet began to advance. Their massive dreadnoughts and battle cruisers moved with a ponderous, inexorable purpose, their hulls bristling with weapons that could reduce a planet's surface to molten slag. But the human ships did not retreat or flee in the face of this overwhelming force. Instead, they began to glow with a strange, pulsating light as their Prometheus devices engaged. Reality itself seemed to warp and distort around them, gravity and inertia bending to their will. To the aliens, it must have seemed like an impossible sight, tiny, fragile human vessels that danced and spun with a speed and agility that defied all known laws of physics. Shots that should have been guaranteed kills missed by hairbreadth margins as the human ships twisted and turned in ways that no conventional spacecraft ever could. And then the humans began their counterattack. Glowing beams of supercharged plasma lanced out from the human ships, punching through the aliens' vaunted shields as if they weren't even there. Torpedoes blinked across vast distances in the blink of an eye, warping spacetime around them so that they struck their targets with impossible precision. The alien return fire was just as fierce, a blistering storm of exotic particles and searing energy beams that would have annihilated any conventional fleet in a matter of moments. But against ships armed with Prometheus technology, that firepower was all but useless. The human vessels simply slipped and phased through the worst of the onslaught, reality itself parting like mist before their bows. As the battle raged on, it became clear that Prometheus was more than just a weapon, it was a revolution in the art of space combat. The alien ships, for all their size and power, simply could not compete with an enemy that could change the very rules of the battlefield at will. One by one, the mighty vessels of the Imperium fell, torn apart by human weapons they could not evade or dashed to pieces against the warped fabric of spacetime itself. What had begun as a desperate last stand quickly turned into a rout as the aliens' seemingly invincible fleet was reduced to burning wreckage and drifting debris. In the end, it was Admiral Ivanova herself who struck the final blow. With a fierce cry of triumph, she ordered the Unity to ram the Imperium's flagship, a massive dreadnought 10 times the size of any human ship. But the Unity did not shatter on impact as the aliens surely expected. Instead, at the last possible moment, Ivanova activated her ship's Prometheus device at full power, folding spacetime around the oncoming Leviathan like an origami sculpture. For a moment, the two ships seemed to merge and blend together, their hulls twisting and warping in impossible ways. Then, with a blinding flash of light, the alien dreadnought simply vanished, compressed into a microscopic singularity by the awesome power of humanity's greatest invention. A stunned silence fell across the fleet as the magnitude of their victory began to sink in. Against all odds, against an enemy that had seemed unbeatable, humanity had triumphed. Not through superior numbers or firepower, but through the sheer, indomitable power of the human spirit, the spirit that had driven them to reach for the stars, to question the very fabric of reality itself. As cheers and celebrations broke out across the fleet, Admiral Ivanova stood tall on her bridge, her eyes alight with the fire of a woman who had just witnessed the impossible. She knew that this victory, as stunning as it was only the beginning. The war was not yet over, and there were still battles to be fought and challenges to overcome. But she also knew that humanity would face those challenges as they always had, with courage, determination, and an unflinching will to push the boundaries of what was possible. For that was the true legacy of the Prometheus Protocol, not just a technological marvel, but a testament to the unquenchable spirit of human ingenuity and discovery. A spirit that would carry them forward into a new age of wonder and exploration, to the very edges of the universe and beyond. In the aftermath of humanity's stunning victory over the Imperium invasion fleet, an eerie calm settled over the solar system. The once mighty alien armada, broken and scattered, limped back through their wormhole in a desperate retreat. Only a handful of damaged ships remained to continue the fight, but without support or reinforcements, they would pose little threat. On Earth and across the human colonies, the initial shock and disbelief quickly gave way to jubilant celebration. Against all odds, against an enemy that had seemed invincible, humanity had not only survived, but triumphed. The streets of every city echoed with cheers and songs, while fireworks lit up the night skies like a million newborn stars. But amidst the joy and relief, there was also a profound sense of solemnity, a recognition of how close they had come to annihilation. In the span of a few short months, the fundamental reality of human existence had been irrevocably altered. The universe, once seen as a vast and empty frontier ripe for exploration, now felt fraught with danger and uncertainty. For Admiral Nadia Ivanova and the brave men and women who had fought on the front lines, the magnitude of what they had achieved was still sinking in. Using a blend of cutting-edge quantum technology and old-fashioned human ingenuity, they had not only leveled the playing field against a vastly superior foe, but tipped the scales decisively in their favor. The key to their victory had been the Prometheus Protocol, a revolutionary quantum field manipulation system that allowed human ships to warp the very fabric of spacetime. By enabling vessels to perform physically impossible maneuvers and phase through enemy fire, Prometheus had rendered the aliens' advanced weaponry all but useless. But as Admiral Ivanova knew all too well, Prometheus was more than just a technological marvel. It was a testament to the unbreakable human spirit, the same spirit that had driven their species to reach for the stars in the first place. Faced with an existential threat, humanity had not surrendered or despaired but instead rallied together, pooling their collective genius to forge a new path to victory. Now, as the dust of battle settled and the first tentative steps were taken to rebuild, Ivanova and her fellow leaders faced a new challenge. The Imperium, though defeated, would not forget this humiliation. They would be back, and next time, they would not underestimate the tenacity and resourcefulness of their human adversaries. To prepare for this inevitable rematch, humanity needed to unite like never before. Old rivalries and divisions had to be put aside in favor of a shared purpose and vision. The Prometheus technology, and the scientific breakthroughs that had made it possible, could not be hoarded as military secrets but had to be shared openly for the benefit of all. More than that, humanity needed to expand its presence beyond the confines of its home system. The galaxy was vast, and there were doubtless other alien races out there, some potential allies, others likely foes. Only by establishing a network of colonies, outposts, and alliances could humanity hope to stand firm against the challenges to come. It was a daunting prospect, but one that filled Ivanova with a profound sense of hope and purpose. Yes, the road ahead would be long and fraught with peril. But if there was one thing the war had taught them, it was that there was no limit to what human beings could achieve when they stood together. As she looked out over the jubilant crowds filling the streets below, Ivanova felt a smile tug at her lips. The celebration was still going strong, but already the gears were turning, the first plans being laid for the monumental tasks ahead. Scientists and engineers who had created Prometheus were already hard at work, refining and improving the technology for the next generation of ships and weapons. Diplomats and politicians were reaching out to old rivals and new allies alike, forging the bonds of friendship and cooperation that would be needed in the years to come. And in schools and universities across the planet, a new generation of bright young minds was being inspired by the tales of heroism and sacrifice from the war, dreaming of the day when they too could take their place among the stars. It was a new dawn for humanity, a dawn that promised both great challenges and even greater rewards. And as Admiral Ivanova watched the first rays of sunlight crest the horizon, she knew in her heart that they would face this new future as they always had, together, united, and unafraid. For that was the true strength of the human spirit, a strength that had already carried them to the stars, and would now propel them to even greater heights. A strength that would ensure no matter what threats or challenges arose, humanity would always endure, would always triumph. The age of the Imperium was over. The age of humanity had just begun.